Hi there, I'm Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez, and this is the Design Your Physician Life podcast brought to you by our Maxillary Mastermind, a personal and professional development program for physicians who want to learn about entrepreneurship. Today, we are with Dr. Avinash Jayaswal. We're going to be talking about his transition from health to health technology. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Design Your Physician Life podcast, where you will get excited about being a physician, learn the tools that can help boost your success, and great tips from successful doctors. Join us to unlock the keys to an amazing physician life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Design Your Physician Life. I'm so excited today. Today we have Dr. Avinash Jayaswal, and he's actually a health tech consultant and founder with over 15 years of experience in the healthcare industry, including clinical, regulatory, and business experience. He has dual training in general internal medicine and emergency medicine trauma from Belgium, and he'll tell us about that adventure. He also had a CSPO and MIT in AI in healthcare credentials. And his mission is to empower healthcare professionals and investors with the knowledge and guidance they need to navigate the complex and dynamic landscape of health technology. We're going to be talking about all of this, as well as his relationship with angel investments, crowdfunding, and his platform that he has created that connects physicians and healthcare professionals to share insights and learn about AI and value-based care. So welcome here to our show. How are you?
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Well, we started here with the story of everybody, so you're no exception. We want to learn about, your upbringing, what was your inspiration to become a physician? And then we'll get into all this AI and investments and your platform and everything else. But before all of that, there was either a boy, a teen, somebody who dreamed at some point of being a physician. So tell us about that.
Sure. It's always nice to go back in childhood, right? Those were always the nice and happy days. It still is now, but those were really the nice and happy days. So in my case, I think it was a bit, I would say maybe destiny. So the story goes that my father is an engineer by profession, and so when I was a kid, like I was like four and a half, something like that. My sister is a bit younger, and he was doing his master's in England, and he, of course, my mom had to take care of the kids while she was not so happy about that because she had to do that. But so we went to visit him for a couple of months in England, and my dad put me in kindergarten and stuff, and my grandpa also came. And long story short, while I was in England, I remember very clearly that day. So we were driving past a medical school, and my grandpa told my dad to stop the car. And my dad had a Mini, you remember, like the Mini was a very popular car back then. So, and he told me, go and stand by the sign. It was University of Birmingham. And so I stood there, and my dad took a picture, and I have the picture of me standing by medical school. And my grandpa told me, you should come and study here when you grow up. Although my grandpa, he didn't know that school more than anybody else. He just thought medical school in Britain, of course, Britain in history has always been like great schools and stuff. So that kind of stayed in my mind, and I kind of forgot about it. And then, in high school, when we were kind of chatting, what are you going to do? I was like, doctor, maybe, right? And then I said, yeah, I think that's what I'll do. And then I forgot about it and went to undergrad. And during undergrad, I was very interested in computer science. So I took a bunch of math classes and computer science. And then in my sophomore year, I kind of like realized after taking one biology class that it was the easiest. It was just without much effort. For other subjects, chemistry, physics, I had to study. But for biology, it was kind of like even if I didn't study, it would still be okay. It's not so true because you have to study in biology. But then I thought, why fight against nature? Just do
let's say it came easy to you.
It came easy.
It came easy to you.
Easy, yeah, totally. And University of Hawaii, where I did undergrad, was an amazing place to do research. So I really exploited, different labs and had that experience of doing lab research, and then went to the Midwest for a master's degree where I did more research and then went to med school. So that's my story of how I, went into medicine.
I think you're leaving out a little detail because you say, "Oh, biology was easy. I'm going to go to medical school and all this stuff," but you had to learn a language to go to the medical school you chose, right?
Yes. So I visited Europe with my friend for 2 weeks. Actually, we were visiting a lab, part of my research. We were invited by Spanish scientists to visit for 2 weeks in Spain. So I went to Europe with my friend who was just coming along for the fun. So it was great for me to have some work and then a friend to kind of visit. So, and during those 2 weeks, there's something that struck me that I have to come back here. So when I came back, I told my friend John, and we met a couple of times. He still remembers that. I said, I have to go back. He's like, really? We can come back next summer. I said, no, I have to go back and do something in Europe. So when I came back to the US, I found my advisor, who was European. Actually, she was kind of like she facilitated. So she encouraged me. She said, yes, okay, you can go, but you'll have to do it in French or in Dutch if you want to go to Belgium. Then I said, let's apply. If I get accepted, then we'll discuss about whether to do it. I have to first of all get accepted. So I applied and got accepted, and my parents were completely for it. So I just took off and went to Europe for medical school. And yes, I did it in French.
Not every day I meet somebody who tells me that they learn a new whole language to go to medical school because, you say, oh, biology is easy, but you didn't make this easy on you. Like you made it like it's a huge worthy challenge to learn in French. One of the things like from your story, I don't think it worked for me because maybe they were too young, but I took my kids. I did some time for research at MIT and some time in Harvard. And then before they were 1 year old, I took my kids to in front of the university of the medical school for Harvard Medical School in front there to take the picture for them. But I think they were too young. So it doesn't work if you're less than 5 years old, but you remember your picture with your granddad in front of the medical school. That they're going actually now to college, and
Okay.
medical school is not in their plans right now. So we'll see.
Well,
that picture was too early then.
Well, we'll talk about why a little bit. I'll tell you what I think, and which will explain why I founded the platform, which we'll have the chance to talk about that. But at some point, it's a little bit of your calling too, I think, because medical school is a lot of, sacrifice. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, right? So,
yeah. So then after medical school, you're there in Belgium, right? And then you also didn't only do one residency, you have dual residency. You have general internal medicine and emergency medicine trauma. Tell us about that, those choices for you.
Yes, I was very fascinated with surgery. So I wanted to get into surgery. So I kept it simple. So I said emergency medicine and trauma, but the precursor to that was surgery. And so when it was very competitive to get into surgery, just like it is anywhere in Europe, it's no exception. And I wanted to do cardiac surgery, and that was like very fascinating. And the whole idea of, doing surgery on an open heart. So I did my due diligence. I applied for the first time around and didn't get in. I was pretty well placed, but what I found out is that residency is a bit of a club. So you get into the club by kind of paying your fees, and the fees are either, of course, the grades, but it's not enough. You have to fit the profile. It's a bit masochistic too, so it's a male dominated. So although I am a male, but I was a foreigner, so I had to make an extra effort to get in. So first time around I didn't get in, so they kind of showed, okay, it's not for everybody. But then I applied again. I went and got some surgical experience in the OR, and then applied again the following year. And there was one seat available for the summertime, and the head of the department called me and he said, "Are you still interested?" I said, "Yes, of course." So he's like, "Okay, I'm going to send it to you in your email today." I was like, oh my God, I just got in, So that was like a very, very, proud achievement of my medical school to get into surgery. And it was very nice. I mean, I really appreciated that. I just realized that I did cardiac surgery in Belgium, did cardiac surgery in Minnesota, did also cardiac and thoracic surgery at the BIDMC fellowship at Harvard. And then I went back and I was like, well, cardiac surgery is not the future, actually. It's because we are going into more and more interventional. So I will be limited to the academic hospital where we are doing X number of interventions per day, and that's it. And I will not be doing anything else. And I was like, then I won't be, very flexible with my opportunities and stuff. You're just very much tied, and the lifestyle also. I kind of realized, after all these years, I want to have some other stuff going on in life than just medicine and surgery. So I flipped pretty quickly into trauma. So because when you have surgery, you can do ER, you can do trauma, you can even go in the wards. So I flipped into trauma because I wanted to see ER. So I did a lot of shifts and enjoyed that a lot. It was high, intensity. I kind of like the action, and I was doing it without thinking too much. And then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I was called if I want to replace because there was a shortage on the ward. And back then, my girlfriend took off. She was like, this guy's going to bring COVID at home. So she disappeared. And I told her to because it was, I didn't know what was happening and I couldn't stop working. So I was just living in the hospital. I was working double shifts. And so I ended up in the ward, did a lot of internal medicine type work. So, and then while COVID happened, unfortunately, that girlfriend, she really disappeared. I mean, it kind of exposed the reality that we were not going to be meant for the long term. But then my mom, she told me, what are you doing?
Well, I'm glad you can just kind of relax and smile about it and, and move on.
Well, it's life, I mean, COVID was very hard on some families. A lot of people lost dear ones and stuff. In my case, my mom told me to come back to the US, and I just thought, at some point, what am I doing all this for? Who am I doing it for? So she told me, come anywhere in the US, doesn't matter. You don't have to come back to Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you're in New York or if you're in Hawaii, it doesn't matter. Just come back. So then I wrapped up what I was doing there. So I had finished emergency medicine, and with the amount of floor training, I asked that they give me also the general internal medicine residency. It works a little bit differently there. It's just the amount of hours you have, so you can accumulate and just present your case. So when I wrapped that up in 2021, I went back and thought about computer science because that was something I wanted to do, and I took a course at MIT on AI. It was AI in healthcare. And that course, I put it on my LinkedIn profile, and there's a company in New York that wanted to interview. So that was summer of 2021, and I took the first interview on Zoom, just like now, and then second interview in Brooklyn, and then I just packed up some stuff and just came to Brooklyn, and they offered me the job a week later. And I just started right away. And then, so that was my story. And that just wrapped up my story in Europe. So I went back a month.
Did the courses you take, besides the MIT course that you took, did the courses that you take early in your career help you to get that job too? That you have right now?
I just
undergrad or not really?
Well, I knew, computer science is something I like. So it was just that, I knew I could easily go into it. But the course is not meant for computer scientists. It was an MIT Sloan School, which is the management school. So it is meant for people who are working in healthcare who want to get a gist of what AI is. So there was a lot of physicians, but not only. There were nurses also. There were hospital administrators, and from all around the world, which is very nice with MIT courses. It's just, you have people from, I don't know, Middle East, Japan, Europe, and then all over the US. So the classes are virtual. So the discussions are very rich. In fact, you learn a lot in the discussion. And then you have to submit like a thesis at the end based on weekly discussions that keep on, working on the different aspects of AI. But it was not a, programming course. So which was fine because my knowledge of computer science was very rusty. So, but it was enough to understand a little bit of what I can do. And then the company, I told them very clearly, I'm not going to be coding. And they said, I didn't need you. We didn't need you for that. We needed you for your clinical experience and also for discussing with doctors about the partnerships and working on the platform with the developers. So it was a great, I think, change in career. I think that was a bit of blessing. Maybe I did a lot of good karma during COVID, because during COVID was really tough. I was really like front line and triple mask and astronaut suit and all that stuff, you know.
I know. So you know what? This is like a perfect transition, because one of the things that we've been talking to our physicians during the last few months is really how they need to get involved and which opportunities there are for physicians, not to necessarily do the clinical work, but from all these companies who are developing artificial intelligence solutions, and how as physicians we can help them. So how did you find them? How did they find you specifically, for those who are listening? And what were your specific tasks? Why did they hire you?
Yes,
What did they hire you to do?
absolutely. So, you know, networking is something which we are not taught in medical school, and we are taught in business. They're taught actually business school, MBA. I flirted with the idea, but I didn't have the patience to do an MBA. It's just, so I decided to teach myself because LinkedIn is an amazing resource. So first thing I will advise everybody to use LinkedIn more than just putting a picture and putting the job description. It is an amazing tool. In fact, it is a nuclear weapon in the sense that you can do so many things with LinkedIn. You can learn on LinkedIn. There's so many courses. If you have some time every day, if you put half an hour, 45 minutes, you can learn about marketing, you can learn about AI, you can learn about presentation, podcasting, just anything relating to career. So I think I said to myself, I'm going to make a good LinkedIn profile. So I paid somebody to actually work on it. So I worked on it, and then that person I paid, she was laughing. She's like, this is like a student doing his profile. So I said, go ahead. So she actually got my permission. She took my codes. So she rewrote the whole thing from beginning to end in the manner that actually the software program picks up on the keywords in searches, because at the end of the day, you're one of so many profiles. So if you want to maybe come out in a, let's say, crowdfunding, if you want to look at jobs, if you want to look at consulting, if you want to look at, you know, just groups, people reaching out for any number of business opportunities. So it's all about how your profile is set. And there, I think if you spend $200, $300, $400 on somebody, it's not bad. I mean, you can also, these days there's AI can do it pretty well. Back in 2021, AI was not doing it. AI was for other things, but not for this. But now ChatGPT and others have the capability to help you write. So a good profile is one of a weapon to get going in the business world. And so that's one thing. As far as technology and health technology goes, where there's a lot of work and a lot of businesses that have opened platforms. So what they wanted in their operation is people that have, of course, the technical knowledge, the business knowledge, but they also need the clinical knowledge. Why? Because they cannot do it on their own. And a lot of these entrepreneurs are not doctors. It's just because God is not so generous to give one person with all the gifts, right? So amazing entrepreneurs are not necessarily doctors. So, but they are doctors who are entrepreneurs, great. But so they would actually need doctors to kind of weigh in, you know, what should we be doing? Let's see if it's a mental health app. So an app is just a window to the store. And what is the store? The store is patients coming in, and virtual things are virtual, and COVID was good for that because before COVID it was just 19th century. Everybody has to go in, has to drive up their park and whatnot. So now with virtuals, if you take
French style, it was European style. 19th century.
I love that word, 19th century. In fact, yeah, my mom uses it a lot too. So it is. I mean, there was, you know, since the car was invented up until COVID, everybody was, you know, using the car to go to work, car to go to office, car. But now you can sit down here and order your food, do your meetings, you can even work, you can learn. There's a lot of things that can be done online, and that's the power of technology. Because if you look at traffic and global warming and all that, there is definitely good that has happened in COVID to push this forward. So yes, to come back to your question, I think physicians can find so many opportunities in their space. So you have to have a niche. So let's say let's say a psychiatrist. But psychiatrists are a rare commodity, so they can actually they have free ride. They can basically choose to do whatever they want. It's just because we have a huge shortage of psychiatrists in the country. But if you look at, let's say, internal medicine, if you look at surgery, but then people are already very specialized. So whatever you're specialized in, if you think that specialty, that expertise is in demand, then put it out there. Because you might find a company on the other side of the country or the other side of the world who might find your expertise interesting, and they need it immediately, just because that's the way business works. If they don't need you, if you can't actually show some value immediate, they don't go into it. It's not academia where it's okay, let's just do something. Even nothing comes out, we'll keep doing it and keep doing it. In the business world, it's very easy because if there's no monetization. So there is, a lot of positives to that kind of mindset. But yeah, to come back to the question, I think LinkedIn is a good place. Clinical expertise doesn't need to be technical, but it has to be specific and deep and in detail. That's what is important in consulting. And some doctors are just doing consulting, those that don't want to do clinical work. I think a little bit of both is very interesting, because then you have some variety. But if you're not having it easy, think of how you can make it work for you. Reach out. I would be happy to provide advice. There's no problem. There's some effort that goes into finding opportunities.
So right now you say that you're working with angel investors and different like crowdfunding. Tell us, if we are on the other side, if we're a physician who wants to get angel investors and crowdfunding, which sort of things are these companies looking for on somebody that they want to invest in?
Yes. So this is in 2023, after my first tech adventure, I was approached by a group of investors that were physicians, and they asked me to join because I was based in New York, and which is the hub of investing, right? I mean, stock exchange, Wall Street, this, that. But I was not so, much into investing. I knew it a little bit. That was new for me. So they told me, just join and we'll tell you how you can be helpful, but that will come with time. So just join. So then I found out that what they wanted me to understand is that my situation in New York was very valuable, because I could easily reach out to my whole book of contacts now that I have based in New York. And New York City is a very important brand. That was one reason. And secondly, you can learn it. Again, I'm not, an investment banker, but what I value is things that bring meaning. And the doctors that actually opened this investment company and also this fund is to invest in those projects, those startups that they think is going to make a difference in healthcare. Why? Because there's a frustration on the part of physicians. That's something which brings me to the other platform which I founded. The frustration of physicians in a system which is highly ruled by, I would say, non-physician interests, as opposed to allowing physicians to do what they do best, is taking care of patients. We're just stuck in this system where we are actually just doing a lot of administrative work and pleasing administrators rather than pleasing, the patient population as much. Plus, there's a lot of value-based incentives that are added on, which are good for everybody except for the doctor, because the doctor is not an octopus with 8 arms and 4 legs. So
except the anesthesiologist in the OR. We have had. I've been an anesthesiologist in the OR. We have many arms. Okay.
Absolutely, yes. That the only exception in the OR. So yes, hence those projects that make sense for doctors, that's where we are investing. So other doctors would also find it logical. Like for example, one of the companies has developed a portable EEG that can detect a stroke and the bleeding and by the waves that are emitted. So it's for, if you think about those regions of the country where there's access is very difficult, right? Rural areas. So by the time EMS comes and so forth, so it's a 3 electrode. You just stick it on, and you're already getting, based on what the data is collected, very quickly within a few minutes, you're getting a reading of what the stroke is, what is happening with the stroke. That's a company. I'm not going to name it, of course. I mean, but it's pretty advanced in the funding right now, and it's awaiting FDA approval, and then it will be launched in, we hope, 2 hospital systems, one in the Midwest, one on the West Coast. We are looking at the Northeast to launch it as well, and then from there it'll be an acquisition, most likely by one of the big companies, just because to scale on a national, worldwide, you need infrastructure, and a startup doesn't have it. It just doesn't have it. So that's the goal is to take it to that point. But it's that project was at some point, with a pen and paper and, a bunch of guys who thought about it. But taking it to that project coming into fruition is going to bring a lot of good in rural health. So that's a very good, project we're working on right now. And
so I'm guessing that you have the different components, like besides being a great idea by a doctor or something, it's that you're doing really great changes for the quality of care that the physicians are providing, and also the degree of acceptance that you see that project will have in the future, because you can have great things happening, great ideas, but maybe you see that this is not a product that's going to be necessarily accepted by physicians in the community or by the insurance companies. And I'm pretty sure there's like a little bit list of check boxes that you have to
yes,
mark before you can approach somebody with this idea, and then say, okay, you know what, do you want to give me money? And also there's that other component of where your company is in terms of the stage, the person that you have, if you're expecting to make financial gains in a certain period of time or not. So tell us a little bit about what sort of things you're seeing for these companies, which stages are they at, and which little check boxes they have to meet before coming to a company like yours.
So it's a bit of gambling, but you want to kind of cheat the casino. So you're doing some counting, you're doing something to cheat the casino and win. But then it's not as bad, because the odds are hugely in favor of the casino. Here, it's not so complicated, because at the end of the day, we don't have unlimited resources. So we have to kind of like only select a few. And as physicians, I cannot speak of non-physicians, because their approach is a bit different. Usually a lot of it is return on investment right away. Here we are looking at both ROI, and it has to make sense from a physician perspective, that we are seeing it's bringing some change, some meaning, and we are seeing the system getting a little bit better. Like, for instance, another product we were working on and investing is a fall assessment device around the bed. So it kind of like casts like a cage, a virtual cage around the bed, and is connected to the nurse's phone. This way the nurse can be, watching 40 patients, but if a patient comes out of the cage, there will be an alarm, the alarm will be going off. Or even more specific, how the patient is sleeping, because it's monitoring, using infrared and camera. So that device will help, because right now we have a shortage of staff. With COVID, things have gotten worse for healthcare industry. People, not just doctors, nurses, and others have left. So they're managing with less. So this kind of technology, but it's a very competitive
That's like
market.
Mission Impossible. Like you have this red light around the bed, and then the patient cannot move past this red light, and then they're gonna fall. And
A
somebody
lot of
forgot about
ideas
it.
come from there because I mean, healthcare should not be Mission Impossible, but it is.
That's
So
fun. So I want to know about, before we leave today, I really want to know about the platform. Tell us about that, because I think that that's something that you're very passionate about.
yes, I appreciate the question because this is a chance to actually reach out. And of course, regarding the investments, it's actually investments by doctors. And so if you want to reach out for that, more than welcome. We can talk about the projects that we're working on and the ones that we are thinking about investing on. As far as the platform, I actually decided after my 2-year stint in New York and 3 companies in the population health management space, and having met over 750 physicians, independent providers in their offices, and having their phone numbers in my phone, I decided that that kind of goodwill has to be put to something more than just providing population health and reaching out to them for consulting. Why? Because I realized firsthand that the struggle of physician is also part of the problem. And that struggle has been overlooked. What we've been talking about is burnout. We've been talking about patient satisfaction. We've been talking about physicians not being able to do their job. But what about their struggle, that emotional frustration? That has to be brought out as well, because that is part of the healthcare problem in the country, because the management of care is not in the hands of physicians. It's in the hands of administrators who are largely not doctors, not even healthcare with a healthcare training. They're business people. A lot of them are MBAs. A lot of them are, some of them have like experience in like a hat company and they're like CEO of a hospital. How will that guy understand what's going on, in patient care? It's just the way things, but that's America, there's a lot of things which don't make sense, but that's the reality. So that struggle, I thought, needs to be talked about. So the platform I created was to bring into a community independent providers. A lot of them, 75% are primary care providers, but there's some specialists as well. And they are finally the custodians of patient care in the country. Why? Because if you look at primary care right now, there is an influx of Amazon, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS Health. Now, if you take the example of CVS Health, because it makes me laugh a little bit. So we will not get into how the healthcare system is set up, but CVS is like now, just like United Health, which is the largest of the large, like huge. I mean, ExxonMobil, a very, very, very large, big ship. They do everything. They do insurance. They do patient care. In the case of CVS, they also do pharmacy. They do pharmacy benefits. So they're actually negotiating. And now they're going into primary care by opening minute clinics. So they actually are the whole spectrum of care. And do you think that is in the favor of the patient? Okay, let's see if it is. Then you have hospitals coming into buying primary care. So let's say New York, I will name them because everybody knows this, they're all doing it. Northwell, Mount Sinai. If they go and buy a primary care practice, is that primary care practice going to be in the favor of the patient staying home? It's a hospital. The hospital is not in favor of the patient staying home. The hospital is in favor in the patients coming in and consuming health, getting a blood test, getting a scan, getting an MRI if possible, and surgery. That would be great if we can operate, and the list goes on because it's fee for service. So the patient staying at home is only the primary care provider and the independent providers, endocrinology, cardiology, those working for themselves, that have the interest of the patient because that's their business model. Even if they are not altruistic, a lot of them are, because you don't go through medical school or even nursing school just for the heck of making money, because it's a lot of effort. You can make money, much faster doing other things. But it's so
Working at CVS, working at
working at
United
CVS,
Healthcare,
that's a great
administration, I mean.
administration. All the physicians, we make good money, but it's on the back of a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of frustration. So the custodians that of care in the country, they are having a hard time, and that has to be talked about, and that something has to be done about this. So I just started, and at some point I got feedback. So I'm podcasting every week, and that's nice to podcast. Why? Because then we're reaching out to the community and talking, but not talking about the same thing over and over. So the guests are very different. So this week I had an ENT physician who has a device where you can screen for hearing in a primary care office. Why? Because there's only 11,000 ENTs in the whole country. So you cannot screen for the whole population. And something like 45% of people have some kind of hearing problem. So that's a lot of people to screen. Hence his device, which is like a laptop you open and you put, and somebody with a little bit of training, but not the doctor. So it can be a nurse, or you can have a dedicated person doing it, is screening for hearing. And immediately the app tells you if the person can have an over-the-counter hearing aid or has to see a specialist. So that's one example. I'm not going to, talk everything about it. I invite the audience to check out the podcast, and there are others. And next week,
Tell us about the podcast name, the name of your podcast.
Absolutely. So it's the Healthcare Landscape podcast, and it's to talk about the struggles of doctors and from the physician's perspective, and talking about technology, which is a struggle also, and talking about regulation and administrative burden, which is a struggle. So I decided to pick some guests that will speak to these struggles. So next week, we're going to talk about mental health. And the following week, we're talking to a CEO of an AI company that is developing an app to streamline clinical decision-making. And in December, there'll be another CEO who has an app also to automatically scribe for the doctor as the patient is speaking, just to get, to see where the technology is going. This way we talk about technology, because AI is more of a buzzword if you think about how much of it is in the media right now. Even kids are talking about AI. I mean, it's kind of funny because they are looking at it, but it is, at the end of the day, it is the wave of our generation. The last big one was internet. I mean, I'm old enough to know the world before internet. I think, there are some people who don't know that world, and they're adults. So imagine. So this AI is going to change. We can have another podcast just talking about how it's going to change and what are the regulation. But it's going to change. But how is it going to change to reduce the frustration of doctors? That's where we have to focus. And because we can actually do some good there. So if done properly, the technology can actually address the frustration of doctors. That's where I think a good portion of the problem lies, because at the end of the day, it's about patient care. And if you don't have a doctor, if you don't have a nurse, you don't have a healthcare professional who's taking care of the patient, you don't have healthcare. So that's the podcast and the platform that I founded, and looking forward to having more and more people involved. The idea is this is for physicians, for our primary care providers, because primary care is in the ER right now. No, it's even worse. It's in the ICU. New York primary care, you have right in the middle of Brooklyn, right in the middle of northern Manhattan, you have health deserts. There's no doctor. And we're talking about the most densely packed city. But same thing if you go to rural Montana, if you go to outside of Nevada in the desert, you don't have doctors there too. It's just because there's a shortage. So we have to address primary care in a manner that makes sense, because there is a lot of money in healthcare, but why is the healthcare money not properly being given to primary care? Because primary care, but that's where we can have another podcast on lobbying and stuff. But so
it's very interesting because, for example, just last week was the Global Wellness Summit here in Miami, and one of the things that they discussed was that 90% of the money that's spent in healthcare in the United States is spent on treating. Only 10% or even less than 10% is really spent on prevention. So most of the, what we expect in our healthcare system is to treat. And then when it's a cultural thing. The patients expect that, the system expects that, the system is being built like that. That's why you have these CVS and you have United Healthcare. And when you have these companies, you expect a growth, right? Yearly growth. And you really don't achieve that yearly growth for dividends and stuff like that with prevention, right? That doesn't happen, because what would happen hopefully is that if you're investing in prevention, like functional medicine, lifestyle medicine, your primary care physicians, then you would have less usage of the hospital, less usage of all these other things, pharmacies, everything that's been maintaining. So that's a huge challenge in this country that we have. I do want to say, how can people reach you? So we have the name of the podcast. You can be reached on LinkedIn for sure.
Yes, on LinkedIn, you can find me, Avinash Jayaswal, based in New York. You can actually reach out to me. I can leave my email. It's my first name dot my last name at gmail.com. And the crowdfunding health angel investment firm is Doctors for Innovation. It's a pretty catchy name. And I can be also found there, avinash.jaswal at d4hi.com. But LinkedIn this is a good place. This is a good way to end the podcast by encouraging everybody to go on LinkedIn and just connect there. Easily you can connect with anyone. I don't have my profile like screened, so anyone can send me a message. When I don't like messages, I just delete them. There's no big deal.
Well, thank you for being here. I think it's been great, because you've given us an example of what a rich medical career can be, and leveraging your degree as a physician in ways that you're not going to only help, the patients. You've already helped patients one-on-one, but right now you're doing things that are going to help patients in general, doing bigger things and helping change the system. And one can do that nowadays, within the artificial intelligence, with investments, with also helping physicians in the way that you're doing through your new podcast. So congratulations on that. And you know what? Before we go, we have a little bonus. Let's talk about your career from health to transitioning into health technology. Can you tell us one thing that you think physicians should know about the urgency in healthcare with the advent of artificial intelligence and this wave of technology?
So being in America, this is the country that's going to lead the way. Why? Is because America has always led the way in technology. And Biden, president, has actually signed an executive order. And I invite everybody to check it out. Well, it's going to be kind of boring. There's a summary on my website if you want. Just not my website, my LinkedIn page. On the company page, there's actually a summary of it. But it actually shows a little bit where America wants to go, and where, in summary, basically AI is going to be encouraged with some guardrails and encouraging people to be responsible. People, I mean to say companies that are developing it, which is as opposed to Europe, which is taking more like, headmaster, don't do this, you cannot do that, you cannot do that. But what that does is it creates a climate of a bit of restricted. Hence, Europe is not going to be taking the lead for that reason. But Europe is not, because the big AI companies are American. And if you look at Microsoft, Google, if you look at Apple, and even others that are not tech companies, they are big on AI. If you look at Pfizer, if you look at Medtronic, these are all companies that are big on AI. And because drug development is huge. I mean, you can spend 10 years developing one drug, or with AI, you can do it in 4 minutes. I'm not even kidding. So that's the power of AI.
Yeah, that's why, right now we have the capabilities from our computer systems. We have our software. We have right now the data that has grown to a place where we can really develop these drugs in 4 minutes, as you say. So that's why it's so important for physicians to be involved. And in your example of your career, you've been able to do that. You did it, through networking connections, through your LinkedIn profile, really optimizing that for you. And then physicians really cannot wait. If they really want to be, primary care physician today. I saw a chat GPT creation that basically is a primary care physician. It gives you a disclaimer that it's not making any recommendations, but it's basically like going there. And this was created. These GPTs were released 8 days ago, I think today, when at this podcast recording. So just imagine everything. So this is the moment that we have to be involved. So thank you for that thought. And
just one last word to other physicians, not to be scared of AI. AI is going to make our work more meaningful because it'll take out that burdensome part. And that's the goal is going to make it more meaningful. So we'll be able to be physicians. We'll be able to hold the hand of the patient. We'll be able to look the patient in the eye. Stuff which right now physicians are looking at their computers, which is not because they want to, it's because they don't have a choice. And those, of us taking those files home to finish up those charts, that is going to be a thing of the past. Also, the hope is with AI, and AI is going to help us become better clinical decision making. So there's nothing to be afraid about. And there's a shortage of doctors. And people still, will go to their doctors. They at the end of the day, they'll come. It was like when Google came out, everybody was Googling, we're like, oh, people won't come to doctors. And then they come and they start talking about all kinds of stuff they read on Google, which is fine. It makes the conversation richer. So I think we'll be much better off with AI, much better off. So there's no need to be afraid. The idea is to embrace it. This is our age of technology, one more time. So why be afraid of technology?
Embrace it, get involved. So thank you for being here. Have a great day.
Thank you, Dr. Diaz. It was a pleasure.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, that's it for today. I hope that you were inspired as much as we were in transitioning from health to health technology. You can actually reach Dr. Jayaswal through the company Doctors for Health Innovation, obviously through his profile in LinkedIn, and also on his podcast called the Healthcare Landscape Podcast. I hope that you share this with others. Please subscribe to our channel. Check out our YouTube channel called Max Salary Mastermind. Give us 5 stars, and we'll see you here next week. Have a great time. Thanks. Bye.
Please remember that Design is not providing specific financial, medical, or career advice. Our only intent is to stimulate your appetite for growth by sharing our experience and those of our speakers, coaches, and guests. Your personal growth and success will be unique to your circumstances and your hard work. We sincerely hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to seeing you next week.